Hey everybody, this is Death by D4, and welcome to the 5 best damaging cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot to go over, so be sure to subscribe and let's dive right on in. Starting off with number 5, we've got a fairly recent addition to D&D, Sapping Sting. As an action, you target a creature within 30 feet of you to succeed on a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d4 necrotic damage and then falls prone. The power of this cantrip increases as you level up, capping out at 4d4. Admittedly, the damage output of this cantrip isn't very good. It's basically the same as Vicious Mockery, which I've always said is just terrible in general. However, unlike Vicious Mockery, this cantrip actually has a useful secondary effect of knocking your target prone. Not only does that mean that your target has to spend half of its movement just to stand back up, which is a significant slowdown in comparison to Ray of Frost, but it helps grant advantage on all of your allies' melee attacks against the target while they're down, and can be used to ground flying enemies. Yes, for those of you that don't know, if a flying creature is knocked prone, it falls out of the sky, which is just absolutely incredible for a cantrip. All in all, not the best damage dealing cantrip in general, but it's definitely a great one to have lying around for when you actually need it. Next up at number 4, we've got a bit of a tie, Magic Stone and Shillelagh. Both of these cantrips allow you to use a bonus action to transform a mundane weapon into a magical one, dealing 1d6 or 1d8 plus your spellcasting modifiers worth of bludgeoning damage whenever you land an attack with said weapon. With Magic Stone, you can make up to 3 ranged attacks before needing to recast it, and with Shillelagh, you can make any number of melee attacks for up to 1 minute. I'm not gonna lie, I totally didn't realize just how powerful these cantrips were until they were used against me. The simple fact that both Magic Stone and Shillelagh allow you to add your spellcasting modifier to the damage roll is actually just incredible. That means you're going to be dealing some pretty reliable magic damage right away at first level, and that's just insane. That said, the main reason why both of these cantrips fall into my number 4 spot is because of just how sharply their damage starts to fall off outside of your early levels. That said, they're both still really quite effective and more than worthy of this number 4 spot. Next up at number 3, we've got Firebolt. As an action, you target a creature within 120 feet of you and make a ranged spell attack against them. On a hit, the target receives 1d10 fire damage, and this damage output also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d10. Additionally, it can also be used to ignite any flammable objects that aren't being worn or carried. This is just a very good and straightforward cantrip. You just pick a target and you blast it with fire. For what it does very well. However, the main reason why it only makes it to my number 3 spot is because of one very unfortunate caveat with it, and that's its damage typing. Fire damage is, unfortunately, one of the highest resisted damage types in all of 5th edition, and that's not even counting the creatures that are just straight up immune to it. That said, it's still a very good cantrip to have, and if you really want to rely on it, I would just highly recommend taking the Elemental Adept feat, as that will really extend its usefulness to you by ignoring all of those pesky fire resistances. All in all, a great cantrip for you to have, and one that's already very well liked by most of the community. Next up at number 2, we got Toll the Dead. As an action, you target a creature within 60 feet of you to succeed on a Wisdom saving throw. If the target fails its saving throw when it has all of its hit points, then it takes 1d8 necrotic damage. However, if the target fails its saving throw when it's missing any of its hit points, then it takes 1d12 necrotic damage instead. The power of this cantrip also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d8 and 4d12 respectively. Wow, a cantrip capable of dealing 1d12's worth of damage? That alone makes it pretty special, but that's not entirely why I beat out Firebolt for my number 2 spot. No, my main reason for that actually is because of its damage typing. Yes, there are creatures out there that are resistant and immune to necrotic damage, but there's far less of them than that for fire. Heck, even the whole matter of its damage bonus isn't all that big of a deal, as it will only really be a problem for you if your target has temporary hit points, and that's a whole other problem to deal with in and of itself. However, all that's holding it back from my number 1 spot is the simple fact that it requires a Wisdom saving throw. Unfortunately, a lot of creatures actually have very good Wisdom saving throws, and that's kind of a terrible shame for it. At the very least, that's its only real downside, so it's definitely still one of the best damage dealing cantrips in the entire game. And finally, at number 1, we've got Eldritch Blast. As an action, you target a creature within 120 feet of you and make a ranged spell attack against them. On a hit, the target receives 1d10 force damage. You also gain the ability to fire multiple beams at higher levels, capping out an additional 4 beams. I mean, are you really surprised? This isn't just the best damage dealing cantrip in 5th edition, it's also my personal favorite cantrip in general. Range 120 feet? Check. 1d10 force damage, the least resisted damage type in all of 5th edition? Check. Multiple attacks at higher levels? Double check. Seriously, once you synergize this cantrip with things like Hex and Agonizing Blast, you literally become the definition of the Blaster Mage archetype. Even an Evocation Wizard with Magic Missile really can't compete with you at that point, at least not without expending an actual spell slot. Yes, it might be restricted to warlocks, and yes, it also might be a bit inconsistent at higher levels considering that you have to hit with multiple attack rolls. But I honestly don't even care about that. It's just so good and easy to build for that there's just no way I couldn't award it with the number 1 spot. It just simply can't be beat in my mind. And that's it! Those were the 5 best damaging cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Do you agree with my list or do you disagree with it? Let me know down in the comments below. If you'd like to support the channel, be sure to give this video a like and consider supporting me over on Patreon. Patreon supporters gain access to my patron-only server over on Discord, where you can join in on my games, and chat with me and other patrons about everything D&D related. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't, and if you're interested in seeing more videos of mine, here's one right up over here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next video.